Hello there, friends. Let's talk a little bit more about volunteer applications. My name is Kenny Conley. I'm the next generation pastor at the Ridge Community Church in Blue Ridge, Georgia, and I am in the process of recruiting 50 volunteers over the course of 90 days. Just this last weekend, we had our first volunteer orientation where I had a handful of new volunteers come into our process, and they all said yes to volunteering. So I'm in the process of moving them towards that. And at the end of the orientation, I have them fill out an application, which is something we talked about yesterday. But I want to talk a little bit more about how recently I've been innovating our actual application. This is when, for the longest time at the volunteer orientation, this is what my process looked like. I had a little volunteer orientation response card. I'm going to throw it in the hub. You can access it at ministryboost.org/90. You can see some examples of those. I had cards for adults, for teenagers or junior leaders. I think it was junior leaders. And I had even some for people that were interested specifically in special needs ministries. I'll put all of them in there so you can have a chance to look at them. But I used to have them fill out that little response card that basically asked how old they were, where they want to serve, what services they want to serve. So it was like a short little snippet of how I could move them and place them. And when I was at Mariners, I had a large staff, so it helped me identify who to give the card to for follow-up. And then they would fill out the application when they're at the orientation as well. And lately, I've made a transition. When I was at Mariners, we made a church-wide move to we call it a Mariners-wide volunteer application. So no matter where you served at the church, we had one volunteer application, and it was short and sweet and asked all the most important questions. Now, for some ministries, like kids ministry, student ministry, that application wasn't enough. We needed to go a little bit deeper on certain issues to make sure that they were appropriate for leading minors. And so we created a secondary application. And I kind of like this idea of a two-part application. It allows you to have consistency across the board, across multiple ministries. But then also you have an application that could go a deeper dive into the ministry. So where I am now, I've created two applications. One of them I call the Rich Kids Volunteer Intake Form. And then I have the Rich Kids Volunteer Application. And we're getting them ready to do the same thing for the student ministry as well. And here's the reason why. One of my urgencies is I want to get their information and kick off the process of running background checks and the screening process right away. My goal is if I can screen the volunteer in the first 2 or 3 days after the orientation, I can actually plug them in for observation the very next weekend, which we'll talk more about the speed of which you get a volunteer into an observation role. And so sometimes an application, it asks big questions that take a little bit more thought and time to answer those questions. And so for me, I just need I need their social security number. I mean, I don't actually ask for that, but I need them to move towards, I need their references, and I need them to start their background check. So I have an intake form that is kind of actually a new version of that original response form. So the intake form asks who they are, it asks for their contact information, and it asks a little bit about, how old they are, where they want to serve, what kind of role they want to be in, and that's it. And then when they submit that, we use Planning Center Online, so it's tied to an automation that immediately sends them a background check, and they automatically get that and fill that out. And so usually we can have a volunteer that comes to an orientation that we have all their information to check their references, schedule an interview, and run their background check, and oftentimes is already run by Monday. So I love that it's super quick, and then they can take an extra day or two to complete their application. So in the hub, I'll put both and I have two of them. I have two intake forms, one for minors, it doesn't prompt a background check, and one for adults that does prompt a background check. And so I just love this idea of actually unifying the whole church around an intake form. That way we get all the information that we would want church-wide, no matter what role they're in. And then you can create custom applications for adult small group leaders or for kids leaders. But for some ministries, you may not need a secondary step. The intake form might be enough. So all that information will be in the hub, so you can look at that and see how that might help you and maybe get you the information you need to adequately screen your volunteer, but it doesn't slow you down in the process as well. Okay, thanks so much. Check it out and see how it helps you in your process as well.